I think she hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady.
The View's Sunny Hostin was under fire after several controversies. From her unfiltered comments about the election directed at women to the grave allegations against the First Lady, Melania Trump.
We know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have.
This poses serious threats to closing the talk show. As a result, the show didn't air new episodes for 2 weeks. Before the show returns with its regularly scheduled programming this year, it would have to settle a $900 million lawsuit, and thankfully, The View has not been canceled.
So, yeah, nice to see everybody. It's very nice to be here, because I wasn't here last week. I don't know if you know
Everyday
this
Joy
yet.
apologized for you. She's so sorry if you came for Whoopi. She's not here today.
Well, I'm back.
Missed a hell of a week, girl.
Oh,
We got 53 more left in this year. No, 51 more left in this year and 3 more years.
Well, I'm in the same mode I was before.
Yeah.
You know, now that I know what's pissing me off, I can deal with it. And that's where I'd like to be.
So, after 2 weeks, Sunny Hostin kicked off The View after escaping the $900 million lawsuit. She used her platform on The View this week to call the mass deportations being carried out by Donald Trump inherently racist.
Tom Homan has started using ICE agents to conduct a nationwide raid and the U.S. military to carry out mass deportations of undocumented citizens. Now, he told ABC News Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz that this is just the beginning. Take a look.
Is this what we will see every single day, ending in what the president has promised is millions and millions being deported?
Yes. But you're going to see the numbers steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture.
The estimates of perhaps those who have been convicted or arrested in the past, 700,000 to over 1 million. So after you do that, then you go after everybody who is there illegally.
The View co-host dug into a difficult hot topic at the start of the hour on Mondays. So, what controversial issue did The View co-host tackle this time? Did the debate spark any strong disagreements among them? And how did the audience and viewers respond to the topic? Sunny Hostin is not done with Donald Trump. He's practically living rent-free on her head. Despite the previous threats, the latest episode of the show was in response to the news that the Trump administration is using both ICE agents and military equipment to carry out massive deportations.
Major developments on immigration just days after President Trump declared an emergency at the southern border. A military buildup underway. The first of some 1,500 active duty troops have arrived. Marines from Camp Pendleton arriving with heavy equipment and Osprey aircraft. And for the first time, military planes are making deportation flights. This C-17 at Fort Bliss, Texas. Migrants in restraint seen boarding a flight to Guatemala. A new image from inside another flight taking off from Tucson, Arizona. Meantime, the administration saying that arrests are ramping up. More than 500 undocumented migrants arrested in multiple cities over the last 24 hours. And tonight, the president's new border czar, Tom Homan, saying this is only the beginning. ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz leads us off tonight.
With tensions running high, the conversation quickly shifted to the facts behind the headlines, revealing a surprising outlook on the deportation numbers.
When you look at these flights where they are deporting people back to their origin nation, we don't know who they are, and that's where I'd like to see more transparency. If indeed, right now, everyone on these flights is a violent criminal, I think we can all agree everyone thinks they should leave the country. We were saying that this morning. It's common sense. But what we're not getting is a breakdown of who these people are. On the first day of Trump's presidency, DHS, there was a press release, and they said that they had nabbed more than 300 illegal migrant criminals, including 1 attempted murder and 1 child molester. But what about the other 298? What was their crime? Because I think either you own the fact that these are all violent criminals and break down who these people are, what their crime was, and tell the American people, or tell us what they really are and let us have a healthy debate over the disagreement of how this is being carried out.
On the show, Sarah Haynes was the first to speak up and decided to clarify the actual statistics involved in the deportation. She stated that the headlines and media coverage create the impression of widespread deportations. But in the real sense, President Obama remains the deporter-in-chief. Even if Trump continues at this rate, he will not even hit what President Obama hit in 1 year, with 400,000 migrants deported. As the debate continued, Alyssa Farah Griffin shifted the focus to a key point of agreement about deporting migrants with criminal records. She pointed out that the deportation of those migrants who have committed crimes is a nearly universally supported principle for Americans. Building on this point, she emphasized that border security and immigration control are global concerns, not just an American issue, because most nations on Earth deal with the question of how to secure their border and how many migrants to take in. So, it's not uniquely American and can't be said to be xenophobic to simply care. Because if it's not watched, there would be a huge national security and economic backdrop. But what we're seeing now, what matters to me is how it's done, that has been humanely and safely, and that we're prioritizing the people who shouldn't be here.
Listen, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Don't love that he's back in office. I have some real fears about things that he's telegraphing. My biggest gripe with him has been there are things he is good at and that the American people trust him to be good at. Like the economy, securing the border, yet he always gets pulled back into these past grievances. He wants to relitigate January 6th. He wants to go after Joe Biden. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts talking about Hillary Clinton next. It's like you need a president who's forward-looking. But I'll say this, we live in split-screen America. Right now, our liberal friends are upset, they're spiraling, they're concerned, they're scared. And then half of the voting public is very excited that Donald Trump is back in office. And half of the voting public, 75 million Americans who voted for him. Right. And they're out there, they're calling him daddy. They're saying daddy's back. That's weird. But it's because it's weird. People do care about different issues.
Daddy's back. That is so weird.
People care about different issues in this country. And whether you like this reality or not, Donald Trump's more popular right now than he ever has been, with a 47% approval rating, and 56% of Americans think that he's going to do a good job in his second term.
Then why don't anybody watch his inauguration?
I think that a lot of liberals right now are tuning out because they don't really have a lot of fight left. I think the first time it was like, I want to hate watch it. Now it's like, there's a honeymoon period right now. It's not going to last forever, but Donald Trump knows he's got 2 years to do everything that he wants to before maybe Democrats take back the House. And that's why you're seeing him throw everything at the wall right now to see what can stick.
She went on to suggest that Trump's administration needs to stop the pause for Afghan refugees and others who assisted in the United States military efforts abroad. After Griffin's comments, Goldberg called out co-host Sunny Hostin for making a rather pained expression but staying silent. However, she asked her to wait until after the break to do so, at which time Goldberg once again put the spotlight on Hostin.
We keep on talking about criminals and immigrants being criminals. And I just want people to understand what the facts are and the stats are, is that undocumented immigrants are much less likely to have committed crimes than American citizens. American citizens commit more crimes than anyone who is undocumented. I also want to make the point that an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal because he or she is undocumented. That is a civil offense. So to call people illegals is in and of itself, I think, xenophobic and racist.
And incorrect.
I do. And incorrect. The other thing that I will say is that, to Joy's point, on Sunday, there were 1,179 people arrested. Only 613 of them were considered criminal arrests. That means that the rest appear to be either nonviolent offenders or have not committed any criminal offense at all. And so what we are doing, again, is we have decided as a country to demonize a certain type of immigrant, a certain looking type of immigrant. And those immigrants are either from Central America or Mexico. They are brown. There are a lot of undocumented immigrants here, about 40% of them who come from other countries that aren't brown. But we are not rounding them up. So we are not doing that. So what we are doing, though, is making sure that these other people. My final point is, to your first question, Whoopi, I think this country is a country that lacks empathy unless you have lived it, unless you have a lived experience. And that is very unfortunate. There are people that live life of privilege who don't walk in those steps. And Liz Cheney, for example, is an example of that. In 2020, she was so against same-sex marriage. She opposed it, she voted against it, until she realized that it caused a rift because her sister was a lesbian. And she switched gears.
As the conversation resumed, Hostin wasted no time diving into a crucial question that tested the narrative around immigration and its impact on different communities. Sunny Hostin began her remarks by posing a thought-provoking question. Is this the immigration fix that this country wanted? But certain people want to see this kind of pain and destruction for a group or type of immigrant. If you look at the numbers, yes, the number of immigrants that come from Mexico or are Mexican-born is the largest demographic, but the next largest are Asians and the next largest are Europeans. But these immigrants didn't walk across the southern border. They came by plane. She also castigated Trump for using the military in the deportation efforts and pounced on the story of an American citizen who was rounded up in Newark, New Jersey, during one of the raids on a business. This drew attention to the injustice of the situation. She highlighted a troubling example that brought attention to the consequences of harsh actions and the mistreatment of American citizens in the process. Pointing to the example, she said among the citizens that they detained and questioned were a Puerto Rican man and a military veteran. For the 50 millionth time, Puerto Ricans are American and disproportionately in the military. As she ends her points, Ana Navarro draws from her own personal experience to respond to Hostin's example. Ana Navarro, who hadn't spoken up before the commercial break, delivered a pointed remark to the issue, inspired by her history as an immigrant. She added that she had seen some videos this weekend of Latinos who voted for Trump crying because now their abuelas and their tips are getting deported. But she's having a very hard time mustering up any sympathy for those people. However, Hostin quickly grew serious and launched a lengthy response, one that caused the panel's lone Republican, Alyssa Farah Griffin, to offer a correction. Hostin, 56, had claimed Trump's operation was racist for not targeting European immigrants, mistakenly citing a statistic involving documented visitors from the continent. Hostin, however, quickly fact-checked herself to clarify she had met undocumented migrants after left-leaning outlets like MSNBC pointed out how less than half of the ICE arrests on Monday affected migrants with criminal records. The studio audience in New York then offered a round of applause, after which Hostin, utilizing her history as an attorney, claimed Trump had broken federal law by ordering the operation. As the applause echoed through the studio, Ana took the opportunity to further assert her position, drawing on her background. Ana Navarro, an immigrant herself, claims many of the sample set still overstay their welcome after being granted a visa. In the wake of Hostin's argument, Goldberg agreed, leading Griffin, a former Trump aide who openly voted for Kamala Harris, to again speak up, this time to bash legal Latinos and suggest they were at least in part to blame for the ongoing arrests. Despite the factual inconsistencies, Goldberg and other panelists appeared to agree, with Griffin offering clarification to Hostin's comments along the way. Mind you, Griffin was a Kamala Harris voter who once worked for Trump before she went on to bash legal Latinos, suggesting they were at least in part to blame for the ongoing arrests. As the debate heated up, Governor Gretchen Whitmer contributed and voiced her support for Sunny Hostin's claim that Trump's deportation policies were unfairly affecting brown communities. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat Michigan, said that she agreed with the View co-host Sunny Hostin's assessment that President Donald Trump's deportations were targeting brown people.
Michigan actually has the biggest border crossing in the country. It is with Canada. And as we think about the conversation, whether it is around immigration and our borders, or it is about tariffs, for instance, we have to not lose sight of the fact of what it's going to mean for the American citizen, too.
Yes.
When it costs, talk about increased costs on your blueberries or your energy or the ability to find affordable housing.
Well, and the fact that immigrants bring in $100 billion a year to this country and $8.9 billion, we'll lose at least $8.9 billion if we deport all these people.
That's right. And, the Michigan State Police works very closely with our federal agencies as we protect the most cross-border in the country. And it has worked well, but we've got to follow the law. We've got to treat people with dignity. And we also, as a nation, have failed to secure that southern border. And it's not the fault of the last administration. This has been going on for decades.
But is anyone rounding up Canadians? I haven't seen that.
That's a great question, because now the southern border seems to be the focus.
To your point, and you talked about how the skin tone of people who are being rounded up is different, how you're treated.
Yeah.
This is not breaking news, but it is.
It seems to be breaking news for a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
According to the governor, an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal because he or she is undocumented. Calling such a criminal is a civil offense. So, to call people illegals is in and of itself, I think, xenophobic and racist. And when that happens, what we are doing again is we have decided as a country to demonize a certain type of immigrant, a certain looking type of immigrant, and those immigrants are either from Central America or Mexico. They are brown. There are a lot of undocumented immigrants here. About 40% of them come from other countries that aren't black, like Michigan, which has the biggest border crossing in the country with Canada, but we are not rounding them up. Shifting the focus to the political landscape, the co-host moved to discuss how Trump's stance on immigration appealed to working-class Americans, particularly in areas where jobs and trade were at the forefront of their concerns. Donald Trump made gains with working-class Americans, which were traditionally a Democratic stronghold. One of the issues that did move a lot of voters is the issue of immigration. Not because working-class voters don't want brown people here, but because they know companies are going to exploit cheap labor, hire those people, and that could take jobs away from Americans. They had concerns around trade and offshoring American jobs, issues that, whether you like Donald Trump or not, he talked about in a way that pleased them. As the discussion went on about Trump's plan, Sonny Hostin got infuriated at the president, framing his actions in a controversial light.
In thinking about that, and Donald Trump saying things that this country would be a meritocracy, you're talking about a man who didn't become the president of the United States because of merit. He had no political experience whatsoever. He had no business experience. He was given everything that he has. He is a legacy hire. He is, if anything, a DEI hire, a didn't earn it hire.
Sonny Hostin went on to call President Trump a DEI hire. While DEI normally stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, Hostin said that when applied to Trump, it stands for didn't earn it. Hostin didn't hold back, calling out what she saw as an inconsistency in Trump's actions, especially when compared to his grand promises in his inauguration speech. This she said pointing to Trump's promise to make Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream a reality in his inauguration speech on Monday, just hours before revoking DEI programs in the federal government. Hostin called out the president's hypocrisy. She said the irony of it. Martin Luther King not only wanted racial equality, he wanted economic equality, and that is something that people tend to miss. She added to remind people that he said that black Americans deserve reparations for the injustices they faced. He argued that reparations were a form of justice, in fact, not charity. Hostin continued by quoting King's famous saying, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his bootstraps, but it is cruel just to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his bootstraps." The second-term president, Hostin said, has only ever been given everything that he has. You're talking about a man who didn't become the president of the United States because of merit. He had no political experience whatsoever. He had no business experience. After the former president made a sharp diss toward Hostin in a recent speech, Trump trash-talked Hostin, telling the audience that the TV personality was a dummy and a dumb woman. He also said that Hostin, 55, is dumber than the former vice president, Kamala Harris, who sat down with the View co-host some weeks ago. In response to the low blow, Hostin looked into the cameras to respond to Trump.
I have a personal legal note.
Yes.
Donald Trump, I want to thank you for personally telling so many lies and committing so many alleged crimes and providing us with material on a daily basis. You help us do our jobs, and I'm so appreciative. Because of people like you, a former prosecutor and legal expert can become a fixture on a show like this. And again, I'm so grateful. I admit I may not have spent as much time in a courtroom as you have. I was also recognized with a Special Achievement Award by the Department of Justice. You remember the Department of Justice, right? It's the agency that's been pursuing you for decades. And like Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, I've had a history of prosecuting sex offenders. So thank you for keeping people like us in business. And as for dumb questions, you're always welcome to come here and answer some. If sitting so close to a prosecutor won't make you nervous. I'll even give you a free View mug. Not to be confused, though, with the mugshot. Because that's your area.
A week removed from belittling a black artist for merely appearing at Trump's inauguration, she seemingly seized the opportunity to still get her point across. From the look of things, The View's Sunny Hostin isn't backing off. Not even a lawsuit would keep her shut. We look forward to more debates on the TV show. If you like today's video, be sure to check out some of our other videos currently on the screen.